because we would like to have standardization and to have a greater impact inside the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And we aim through that to develop the content, to adapt it, and to make it open for development. Try also to adopt practices which will allow us to develop the content. Also, we work on developing a program for certification of evaluators inside the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I must say that we have faced challenges, and there must be some requirements which are likely to allow us to produce the optimal results. We would like to have a content for Arabic training. Thank God, we managed to live up to the challenge through collaboration with our partners. However, we are still working on localization and Arabization of some notions and concepts which are used by other organizations such as the United Nations and others. These are international experiences which have clear-cut indicators and should be available and accessible to all. Of course, whenever we want to achieve some progress, we do not need to reinvent the wheel. These indicators and their availability and accessibility to the Arabic user will make easy the measurement of impact or the evaluation of impact available. Because, and to give you an example, let's talk about the quality of life. A lot of institutions around the world have or are assessing or evaluating the quality of life. There is a set of indicators which are used to assess the quality of life. And these indicators are used by people to develop plans which answer the need to know what are the lessons learned, what are the strengths, and what are the weaknesses. Also, we need sometimes to have some plans for follow-up and evaluation so that all organizations can adopt them and use them and develop their own plans. Because, as you know very well, learning is not through training, it is through practice, it is through adapting other examples and through seeing how others implemented their plans. Furthermore, we have a complementary program which adds to the evaluation program, and this program has been conducted or prepared in collaboration with ENAC. It aims at first evaluate some programs and some small projects which belong to organizations which do not have enough means to conduct evaluation. So we wanted to have an opportunity for those organizations and institutions. And also we would like to give an opportunity for evaluators and practitioners, because evaluation, as you know very well, is something we learn to do through practice. And we had an example which can be used by evaluators, terms of references, and also in Arabic language. We have managed to translate some references, some sources, which are available on behalf of several organizations, and we are still looking for other experiences which we can adapt and which trainers can or trainees can use. Unfortunately, we are lacking some reports which can be used by evaluators, which can be adapted by the evaluators and can be used as a framework or a reference in order to prepare reports. Actually, we cannot find a single report on evaluation in Arabic language. At least this is our experience as a center. We do not have any report on the assessment of the needs. One of the challenges also we have faced when we talk about evaluation in general and evaluation of intersectorial or intersector programs. Sometimes we have 100, 120 interventions. And if you don't have a development concept or framework where you can put all these interventions, you won't be able to evaluate them. To give you an example, we don't have in absolute terms something in Arabic about fragility. Indeed, we have very few articles on social capital, but very few. So this is the content. And the content is not about translation, it's not about knowledge. Through our journey with the Arabic content, I'm sorry, I need to move to the next slide. And through the last months, we had some experiences. Some people do not know English language. And as you know, all the resources are available in English. So the first thing we use is Google Translate, or Google as a search engine, and look whether there is any source in Arabic. In the absence of any source in Arabic, we use Google Translate, and we copy and paste on Google Translate. What is the result? The issue, to give you an example, we have evaluation and assessment, and both are translated taqyim in Arabic. We took a text and we tried to conduct a simulation. And as you know very well, evaluation and assessment have two different meanings because they are terms. And in Arabic, they are both translated by the word taqyim. Therefore, if you depend on the Arabic text to understand, you will not be able to understand. And at the end, the reader in Arabic may reach an understanding which is clear or accurate and may not. Sometimes the notion gets lost in translation. We have the notions of evaluation results and evaluation findings, which are both translated in Arabic language by نتائج التقييم. And as you know very well, evaluation of results are different. So, as I was saying, evaluation of results are different from evaluation findings. And of course, the context you may have in Arabic will not help you make a distinction between evaluation of results on one hand and evaluation findings. Evaluation of results refer to all what can be achieved through the evaluation, whereas findings refer to the recommendations, lessons learned. To give you another example, let me take impact evaluation and impact assessment as two different notions. Indeed, they have two different meanings or distinct meanings, and the meaning of each is different from the other. And whenever I take any reference or any book or any source, I will find that they are tackled or defined in a different way. And through contact with the people who work in the field of evaluation, we have discussions on some terms, because the issue is not intrinsic to the terms itself, but it's about conveying the content of the notions. Also, we have noticed that when we talk about building capacities or building capacity, not everyone has good understanding, and the definitions which are available at the international organizations are impacted by the mission or the identity of the organization. Let me give you the example of the World Health Organization. And this is just a definition, it's not an example. We have about the outcome as access to healthcare, whereas the UNDP gives a different definition to outcome, namely the changes which may happen on the medium term on the level of development. Others define outcome as differences or variations at the level of behavior. However, new people, when they start reviewing these references or resources, they will realize that they don't have stable definitions. Sometimes we talk about the definition from the World Bank and definitions from other sources. And here we have differences between notions. We don't have a standard definition or standard content for one single notion. And that is the reason why, from our point of view, content does not refer only to knowledge content or theoretical content or frameworks available within some organizations which tackle one field or another. Because currently, if we conduct research on what is available in Arabic language, we may say, thank God, we have sources which tackle general frameworks and some general notions, particularly in the field of follow-up and evaluation. That's what I have tried to depict on the screen in two colors, red and green. Sometimes availability is close to nothing, with the exception of work conducted by the Islamic Development Bank and the OECD DAC. However, the content is not standardized and sometimes is completely missing. And the content should have complete frameworks and means for publishing, and there are databases, indicators that can be used later on. There are researches and scientific research in order to develop the tools of evaluation, which are adapted to our region. We have also the development notions, which are sometimes, or which can be found sometimes in articles. And we have reviewed some university works, but they are not that deep. We have, let me give you the example of vulnerability and some notions pertaining to empowerment. The content is very weak and can hardly go beyond a limited number of articles. That's why we do believe that from our experience, we don't have a complete storyline. We don't have a strong content. If I take the example of the UNDP, we find that there is a strategy, work framework, and a lot of reports on the needs. We have also papers, the system for follow-up and assessment. We have terms of references and also reports or preliminary reports, and we have also evaluation reports and reports on the follow-up on the recommendations of evaluation. It's a whole spectrum of tools. So if I want to learn, I can track the idea from the very beginning, from the strategic thinking until the recommendation. So content, it's not about translation only, and it is not about adapting content which I may take from one organization or another. That's the reason, or let me hope, that I have managed to present to you the experience we have within the center and the challenges we are facing. Thank you very much, Engineer Raid, for your presentation. And indeed, like you have mentioned clearly, we need to consider the content from a larger perspective. It's not only about translating one book or an article. In fact, it is about building experiences based on previous experiences of knowledge sharing, and all in order to develop the exemplary content or the content which really can be used. Dr. Mohammed Al-Fouli, good evening.
الصوت واضح؟ مسموع؟
أهلا، واضح دكتور.
Hello, do you hear me?
أيوه.
Can you hear me?
طبعا أنت تعتبر من
أنا بحب أتوجه
In the name of Allah, before we start, I would like to thank Al-Athar or Impact Center for the invitation and for the opportunity to take part in this seminar today.
I'm pleased to participate with you tonight this evening with the several ideas on the literature of evaluation in Arabic. In fact, we are discussing today the challenges
نظرة للمستقبل.
facing this issue. And so in the next slide,
أستاذ أحمد.
Mr. Ahmed, please. I'm sorry, the voice of the speaker is unheard. It's interrupting.
نصحح مسار التدخلات التنموية بنرشد على المؤسسات أكثر كفاءة. اللي بعده.
Next slide, please. So we put in place policies which are more efficient, and we learn from all these things. Either at the level of policies, projects, initiatives, or at the institutional level, to learn from past experiences so that we can remain always forward-looking and to have a better future than what is happening now. Next slide, please. So we learn from evaluation through a human being, and the human being is the one who most benefits from evaluation. It also impacts the prevailing culture in society, which governs behavior, because the prevailing culture which governs behavior has a direct link with language, because the language we use impacts our behavior. Therefore, we need mechanisms. Mr. Ahmed, please, next slide. Therefore, we need literature and references on evaluation in Arabic, because what we read and in foreign language does not have the same impact as what we read in our mother language. So language is of paramount importance. And in fact, what psychologists and sociologists say has more influence and has more impact than what I'm saying now. and foreign language is used surfacely, but does not have the same impact, except in rare circumstances. So to have references in Arabic, we need, for the first instance, translation. And yesterday and today, General, we discussed issues and problems of translation. So we do an Arabization, which means that we take the Arabic text and draft it in Arabic without direct translation from the source text, either at the level of terminology or the level of content. And above all that, we need to have many researchers and experts who write in Arabic. So those who write in Arabic must have a good command of translation. At that same level, they must be capable of Arabization and to use Arabic very well. So in terms of references that we need in Arabic, we need reference books to which we can refer, and they contain concepts and notions. We need also simplify the books for non-experts and for the mass. So this is the first one is academic references. Second one is general references, and then we need also booklets on specific topics. For example, data collection mechanisms and tools. Because all institutions need such mechanisms and tools to compile data. So we need booklets to learn how to compile data, etc. And also we need guides and corporate and institutional guides. This is an important step for institutions conducting monitoring evaluation. They need to have guidelines and manuals compiling all procedures and operations processes on which evaluation should be based. Next slide, please. I also need training content, and this is very important also, because training content is actually available only in mostly in foreign languages, and all we know.
في المشرق العربي على الأقل، ما أعرفش في المغرب، الإخوة في المغرب يقولوا لنا مدى استخدام اللغة الفرنسية، إنما جزء كبير جدا من الناس اللي بتحضر الدورات التدريبية باللغة الإنجليزية بيضيع عليهم 30 40 50% وربما أكثر من المضمون ومن المفاهيم. وده يعني أنا بقوم بعمليات تدريب في مصر وفي عدد من الدول العربية في المشرق العربي، و يعني أنا بتكلم دايما باللغة العربية، ولما بسأل الناس ماذا يحدث في المحتويات التدريبية باللغة الإنجليزية، فعدد كبير جدا ما بيقدرش يتابع وما بيقدرش يتفهم الموضوع بالكامل، ياخد جزئيات اللي فيها ضيفة. محتاجين إلى أبحاث ودراسات أكاديمية حول التقييم والمتابعة. بنحتاج أن تكون تقييم المشروعات والبرامج والمبادرات معمولة باللغة العربية، حتى تلك التي تقوم بها المؤسسات الأجنبية. إخواننا، إحنا اللغة العربية هي لغة من لغات الأمم المتحدة، وبالتالي لو طلبنا أن تكون تقارير التقييم للمشروعات المشتركة مع الدول الأجنبية أن تكون باللغة العربية، فهذا ليس طلب إضافي، وإنما هو طلب مشروع، لأن اللغة العربية هي إحدى لغات الأمم المتحدة، وبالتالي يبقى عندنا التقييم معمول باللغة العربية. أنا نفسي أسأل برضو بالنسبة للمشرق العربي، كم في المية من تقارير المشروعات مع شركاء التنمية المكتوبة باللغة الإنجليزية بيقرأها المعنيين وأصحاب المصلحة والفئات المستفيدة؟ أنا أكاد أجزم وأقول ما تزيدش عن 4-5%، والباقيين بياخدوا التقرير ويركنوه، يتفرجوا على الصور أو على الجداول، الكلام اللي في الوسط ما بيتفهمش. وده عيب فينا مش عيب في الهيئات الدوليه. نفس الحكايه في تقارير التقييم للمؤسسات وللسياسات. الحاجات دي كلها حضراتكم تكاد تكون غير موجوده باللغه العربيه، وان وجدت فهي قليله جدا والاعتماد عليها قليل. هنشوف ايه الاسباب. اتفضل اللي بعده استاذ احمد.
Mr. Ahmed, please. So the challenges that face us are individual and institutional. Mr. Ahmed, please. So the institutional challenges include the lack of institutional demand from national institutions for evaluation. Few institutions require evaluation. Most evaluation is required from international organizations. Also, the lack of resources available for field evaluations. Data are collected and then used in evaluation without the evaluator going conducting a field visit. And also there is a lack of national systems for evaluation. Most Arab countries don't have national institutional framework for evaluation, which goes from bottom up or up bottom to evaluate and assess policies and national projects, programs, and policies. So this is one of the challenges that you are facing, and some countries are in fact paving their way towards this institutional evaluation framework. There is also a lack or deficiencies in the national system for evaluation, lack of national policy for evaluation. For example, if we go to Egypt and, for example, look for a national evaluation policy, it's inexistent. And if we look in other countries, also we find no such thing as a national evaluation policy. And if even they have national evaluation policy, the policy might be there, but it's not implemented. Next slide, please. So academic challenges relate to there is no agreement on terms and on terminology and concepts. And most terminology is taught in foreign languages other than Arabic. In existence of academic and professional studies in Arabic institutions, in Arabic universities on evaluation. All of them, mainly all of them are in English or in other foreign languages. At the level of individual challenges, most institutions want to publish in English for the sake of larger audience, and also the easy use of English because of the availability of resources, and also the lack of income or return for publications or translation works and authorship in Arabic. People don't want to spend, national institutions don't want to spend on Arabic works or on Arabic translation works. And academics in Arab countries do not want to communicate in Arabic. They see it as a language which is not that of academy and of science. And yesterday we spoke about this with Mr. Shitwi, and we talked about this challenge. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, we need to speed up the development of national evaluation systems and national and governmental institutions, non-profitable and waqf institutions need to publish works in and translate works in Arabic on evaluation. We need to increase resources, governmental resources dedicated to ministries to conduct evaluation studies. We need also to increase attention to institutional evaluation of governmental structures, which is inexistent in Arabic countries. We need also an active participation at the national level in the evaluation works conducted by international organizations concerning joint projects. At the level of academic level, we need to encourage Arabic universities to conduct academic studies on evaluation in Arabic and to have masters or PhD specialties in Arabic on evaluation. Next slide, please. We need to develop training content at various levels for monitoring and evaluation in general and specialized subjects in Arabic in cooperation with different development partners. Next slide, please. At the individual level, we need to encourage and provide incentives to individuals specializing in the various fields of monitoring and evaluation in Arabic. And we have to encourage planning staff to conduct studies and conduct monitoring and evaluation in Arabic. And treat translators and Arabic authors like we treat foreign authors and translators. So in order to implement these recommendations, it's necessary that one of the institutional organizations to publish a reference on evaluation from the various aspects, academically, practice, institutionally, capacities, and skills. And the Arab League Administration Development Institute can have a role in this. Also, it's preferable to develop a simplified glossary of the terms and concepts used in evaluation in Arabic. And here, the IDB, now my colleague Julio from Algeria has developed a glossary in Arabic and English for evaluation terms. And last year, it was updated, but we need more than that. We need concepts themselves, and the terms also. And we need also non-profit organizations to finance work on the references and literature on Arabic, evaluation Arabic. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed Al-Fawli. You are one of the most outstanding figures in evaluation in Arabic. You have extensive experience in this field. You have been working since 1976 and one of the first pioneers who have worked on evaluation in Arabic. And we don't forget also your contribution to evaluation through your teaching material on monitoring evaluation in Arabic and the contribution to references in the Arab world. Of course, as we all know, terminology is one of the major challenges to understand any specific field and the practice. And we are speaking about knowledge and know-how. We speak about concepts. So concepts are always defined through the terms. So if there is any deficiency in the term, there must also be a deficiency in the concept itself. So here I would like to welcome Professor Marceau. So good morning, Professor Marceau. Knowing that it is morning. Good morning. Welcome, Professor Marceau. Is it my turn now to speak? You have 15 minutes. We have 15 minutes. Okay, well, so I will now share my screen. Do you see it? Thank you for welcoming me. I represent a conference on evaluation terminology and the issues of translation that we have encountered. So, if we talk about problems in translation, that means that we have solutions that on this, and we have staff who will work on terminology, on evaluation and monitoring, and in restricted dimension, not tackling all the terms used by evaluation staff throughout the world, but only will focus specifically on the basic concepts, not on the methodology of evaluation through all social sciences, like for example, sociology, statistics, psychology, economics. We are focusing on the concepts that are shared by the entire evaluation staff, entire evaluation community throughout the world. And in this specific dimension that we think reflect on the difficulties that we have been facing to reach solutions, and these solutions can help to tackle and solve the translation issues that our world is facing when it comes to increase the content available in Arabic in terms of evaluation field. So I will tell you an experience that we have had, that we had years ago with one of my colleagues, and then I will see time. So in 2014, after many years of work, we published the first terminological dictionary of evaluation, which included only 81 terms, and it was available only in French. To tell you that our situation then and here in Canada, or even in France, is the same situation that one of the speakers talk about, is that the prevailing language in evaluation is English. And English prevails not only because in my age then studied evaluation in English because it's a discipline that is taught in Anglo-Saxon world, but also because our political institutions, which are British, draw inspiration from US institutions and drove us to have terminology which is Anglo-Saxon in most parts. And in addition to that, our researchers publish in English because it's a language which helps to larger dissemination, except the fact that we are in a French-speaking world, and hopefully Europe, in fact, particularly France, focuses on evaluation and gives it specific and utmost importance. So we had to live with an English terminology in English-speaking environment in Canada. But throughout the years, over time, which took many years before being given interest to terminology in French. And that's why we developed a restricted number of terms and compiled a dictionary on evaluation. So here I present you with a sample page of this dictionary. For example, now you see the term horizontal data, which has an equivalent in English, but which is very important in the field of the evaluation. And this dictionary maintains its importance. So we present the term, and we also indicate the date in which we detected the real in which that term was used for the first time in evaluation literature, and we give also examples and English equivalent. And also what is most important is references in the general language of that term, how it is used in general language. So it was first used in 1989, in 1829, as a legitimate motive which justifies or explains something. It's a rationale. So for this reason, that the concept raison d'être was defined in such a way, and spelling of this is raison d'être. So what we did then, we paid special focus on the development and evolution of each of these terms. And so I will come back to that Arabic dictionary. Then we developed a more ambitious project, but it took us more time. That of multilingual dictionary of evaluation.
Although we have made major progress in the 2014 dictionary, we found that it is important for us to also prepare a dictionary in English. And it turned out that there is a difficulty from a methodological perspective. We have to overcome the challenge. Our aspiration now is to work on French, English, Spanish, and Arabic. This causes some challenges, of course, but it has allowed us to deepen our work in translation with regards to the base concepts in the field of evaluation, and to identify solutions to improve what is being done in English, Arabic, and Spanish, and even in French. Additionally, here I have two slides in this presentation that show that there is an overall solution for some of the problems we are facing in translation related to the basic concepts. There is a method we can follow to translate the basic concepts regardless of the language we use. There is a table or a chart that shows in green 4 blocks in the area of evaluation, and then there are 2 blocks below in the general French language. Here, the process we follow in one language is shown, like for example, when we work in French, the first block is related to the ambiguous concept underlying the term in a conceptual system. Based on the idea we have for that concept, which relates to a conceptual system. If we try to define effectiveness as a term, for example, we will realize that, or let's say efficiency, they are very close. So this the ideas need to be clearly defined and differentiated from each other. If we want to define a certain concept, we have to give a conceptual definition to avoid any ambiguity. This is hard work to ensure consistency in the conceptual system of definitions. In the second stage, which is the definition of the concept, we write down in normal language the idea or the concept itself. Then we move on to selecting a term. Sometimes we select the term first and then we go back to the definition, but this is not the optimum way. It took us 15 years to realize that this is not the optimal way. We must start with the concept and then we move on to selecting the term. So we have to work in a different way and avoid going immediately to the term. We have to start with natural language. In 2014, we worked on the French language. And at that time, we didn't follow what I'm saying now, but from a methodological perspective, after we define a concept, we should not start looking for a term. We should first find the equivalent in the natural language, the language we use on daily basis. From among hundreds of thousands of words, we should find a word or a meaning that is equivalent to the concept we define. In the fourth stage, we need to identify the equivalent word in normal language, and then we select the term in the evaluation context. It might sound complicated, but it is a way to ensure that the adopted term in evaluation has an equivalent that exists in natural language. If it does not exist, this term must be created. Usually, we have a word or more in natural language that is directly related to the concept and hence the term. Here, I will give you an example, but regretfully, it's in French. For example, as you can see on the left-hand side, we chose efficiency and effectiveness. Effectiveness relates to performance in reaching goals. If we want to select a term that links with this concept, we go to the natural language, and here we used a French dictionary, Le Petit Robert, and we find that the natural language word is very close to the concept used in evaluation, although it's not identical. And we found that effectiveness is the term we should use for this. So that the term matches the definition, the idea of achieving.
Quand on a affaire à une spécialité
We
comme
can
l'évaluation,
apply the same
nos objectifs, on veut
method to all the other languages for terms in the field of evaluation. The aim is not only those who are specialists of evaluation would understand it, but also decision makers and other stakeholders. We need the others to understand this. And that is why we depend on natural language, which takes us to the challenges of translating into multiple languages. We faced this recently, and we can summarize these as shown on the left-hand side. We have the concept, and we have the conceptual system, and we have the source language. Let's suppose it's English. So we need to define the concept in the source language, not the term.
différent, puisqu'il faut c'est comme ça qu'on
We are not translating terms. We are translating definitions of concepts to ensure that we will transfer into the Arabic language, for example, a concept that can be understood by Arabic speakers. So we must first start with translating the concept from the source language into the target language. And there is quite a rigorous methodology that needs to be followed. And then we start identifying in the target language, Arabic in this case, we start looking for an equivalent for that definition in the field of evaluation. At that time, we can adopt a word from natural language that would become a term in the area of evaluation. I believe I have run over the time, and that is why I will conclude with this example. In the case of translation from French into English, you can benefit from this because it's quite similar. The concept that we, or a group of reasons that we use to justify certain policy, we use in French a term that we can translate into Arabic as rationale. So we define in the source language first, meaning that we translate the definition into the target language, and then we try to identify an equivalent in the English language. We used, in this case, the Oxford Dictionary, and we found this definition. The rationale, the term rationale, or the word rationale. And from there, we took that word. So this is a lesson to be learned.
Pour ensuite identifier les termes.
So this is what we do in a multilingual glossary. We don't translate terms. We start with defining the concepts and then looking for the suitable term. If the people use our glossary and they will know what, when they look up a certain term, they will know what we mean by that term in the target language, regardless of the source and target languages. This is the translation problem that we face in the Arabic language. And there are the same problems that we could face in the reverse direction, whether we're translating from English into Arabic or from Arabic into English. I believe this is some of the problems that we face in defining or identifying terms, but we can apply the same to other things when we are discussing terms used by international organizations. There are many methodological issues that need to be corrected so that the translated documents are consistent with the original documents. With that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much, Dr. Marceau. Thank you very much. Would like to thank you all. Due to the time constraint, we are going to review some of the questions that we received in written form. And please, if you have anything to offer, please do it in writing. Engineer Raed, there were 2 questions. And I'm sorry, we need to answer them very briefly. The first question is that do you have any plans to develop any local models using the OECD models. Yes, we are working on developing content, not only using OECD, but also working on developing evaluations of social and economic impact and need assessment. The other question says, can you define the role of the community of practice in policy making and establishing best practices and benchmarking? The community of practice, if we are talking about developing content in Arabic, developing content is not just translation and utilization. The community of practice, rather, allows contributing to advancing what the others are doing and exchange of knowledge, which represents a direct contribution to Arabic context. Practically, you are localizing such practices in line with the local context. Anyone who can do that, which is the community of practice, which is specialized. We, for example, evaluate social impact and the challenges that face all the practitioners, how they were able to solve it, and then share this knowledge. And then contribute to the content. So this is my response in a nutshell about community practice. Thank you very much, Engineer Ryan. Thank you for everyone who has participated in the session, Dr. Mohammed Al-Fouli, Professor Marso. After the break, we will meet with Brother Abdul Khayat, Secretary General of the National Excellence Community and consultant in the northern area. He's concerned with empowerment and leadership. He has a master's in philosophy of management. Mr. Abdullah will be the moderator of the next session, which will address most important experiences and practices in Arabic language. We will now take a 5-minute break and then return with Mr. Abdullah Al-Khayat. Thank you very much.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الصوت واضح قبل البداية؟
نعم الصوت واضح.
Can you hear me well? In the name of Allah, the most merciful, welcome to you all. Resuming this evaluation evening, today we were talking about major experiences and initiatives currently in the area of Arabization and production in Arabic. I will just take a few minutes to tell you that today will be an extension to what happened last Sunday in this center, whom I thank for this initiative. Last Sunday, we were discussing the challenges that face the producers of content and the challenges that face the users. Today, we have a group of experts in the area of development at the Arab international level today. We will hear a number of experiences. I would not be exaggerating if I say that we are going to be exposed to a total of 80 years of career work from the experts collective. Together, we will be hearing our panelists, and we are going to hear from Dr. Ahmed Abdel Jawad about the efforts of the Islamic Development Bank, and then Dr. Qaddour about the Athar Center, and then we will hear from Zami about the experience in the Jordanian government, and then we will conclude this penultimate session with two development heroes, Mohammed Al-Laham and Khaldoun Kibba, to talk about lessons learned in terms of evaluation capacity building to overcome the barrier of language. I don't want to take too long. You need to hear it to those you came to hear from. Before we start with Dr. Ahmed Abdel Jawad, I want to tell you that Dr. Ahmed is an operation evaluation specialist in the Islamic Development Bank, and he will present what the ISDB did in the area of evaluation at the international level. We hope Doctor will bear with us and not to exceed 15 minutes, with all thanks in advance. Dr. Ahmed, you have the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. في البداية أتقدم بالشكر إلى
Peace be upon you all. At the outset, I would like to express my thanks to Brother Abdullah and to Impact Center and all partners for this effort and for hosting this forum, which is a crucial step in terms of realizing the main object of highlighting the goal of enhancing content in Arabic in the field of evaluation, which is towards the establishing culture and frameworks in Arabic for evaluation. In my presentation, I will do my best not to exceed the time. I have three themes, or three parts. The first part is a general discussion or explanation or clarification of what the ISDB group did towards translating the evaluation standards, and then we will show a video that summarizes those efforts of the OECD DAC criteria in Arabic language, and we will shed light on the link that is published on the DIC website, the OECD the DIC. Once again, many thanks to all the participants and all the organizers. As we all know, evaluation, as has been mentioned by the previous speakers, is the cornerstone of enhancing and improving operations and programs. The strategic importance of operation evaluation is not limited to the evaluation itself, but also in learning from this evaluation to enhance and support those who are implementing the programs and operations to learn from the current experiences towards improving performance in the future through recommendations that are produced by the evaluation and lessons learned to set indicators and specific plans that would help realize the contemplated objectives. As such, this effort by ISDB and its partners aimed to translate the revised evaluation standards to have them play a major role in contributing to standardization of linguistic concepts in the area of evaluation and contributing to enhance learning and support or improve accountability based on results. The ISDB contribution in this context of translating this document of evaluation standards was carried out by the Operation Evaluation Departments and the Language Service Division at ISDB, with participation in this in production of this Arabic content with the unit in the African Development Bank and the evaluation of development projects unit in OECD. Also, there were participants from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in United Arab Emirates. This Arabic content was shared with a number of evaluation specialists and a large number of prominent figures in the area of evaluation in the Arab world, and their feedback and suggestions were taken into consideration towards producing the final product. In this regard, we can say that this was a journey that was not short by any sense. It was not simple. It was based on participation of many stakeholders. As the Dr. Foley mentioned, there has been a lot of work on the first part of this publication, and last year we finished revising it, and it was adopted and published officially on the OECD website. So these standards, the cohesion and effectiveness, efficiency, impact, and sustainability have become criteria of playing a pivotal role for interventions. We are aiming to have context-sensitive intervention and that are cohesive with the other interventions that achieve results adequately and produce impact and sustainability. To simplify the outcome, allow me to show this short video that shows in a simple way what ISDB is doing in this regard.
The Islamic Development Bank is a multilateral development bank working to improve the lives of the people by promoting social and economic development in
ترفع الصوت دكتور شوي بسيط، ارفع الصوت لهند.
impact at scale. The independent evaluation function of the ISDB assesses the development effectiveness of the bank's interventions, and draws evidence-based lessons and recommendations to improve ISDB business. The ultimate goal of the independent evaluation function is to promote stakeholders' accountability and to enhance learning with the aim of improving futures policies, strategies, processes, and more importantly, to enhance performance and results of development interventions. How is evaluation conducted at ISDB and other development financing institutions? Like most of the development financing institutions, ISDB requires that the operations it finances be relevant, coherent, effective, efficient, impactful, sustainable, and be conducted using the most appropriate processes and involving the right stakeholders. ISDB takes steps to improve the evaluability of its operations, incorporating in their designs the features that will make it possible to tell, after completion of implementation, the extent to which the expected results are reached. In recent years, all development financing institutions have been taking steps to harmonize their evaluation approaches and the criteria to be used to assess performance of development interventions, or common criteria to evaluate development interventions. These evaluation criteria are adopted and set through the Development Assistance Committee, or DAC evaluation criteria. The DAC criteria are 6: relevance, coherence, effectiveness, efficiency, sustainability, and impact. At ISDB, most of the development interventions are evaluated based on the following criteria: relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, sustainability. Relevance. Is the intervention doing the right thing? The relevance is the extent to which the project's objectives are consistent with beneficiary needs, the country's development or policy priorities and strategy, and the IDB Group's assistance strategy and corporate goals. It also refers to the adequacy and coherence of the project's components to achieve those objectives. Effectiveness. Is the intervention achieving its intended objectives? The effectiveness is the extent to which the intervention achieved, or is expected to achieve, its objectives and its results, including any differential results across groups. Efficiency. How well are resources being used? Efficiency is defined as the extent to which the project has converted its resources or inputs economically into results. Sustainability. Will the benefits last? The sustainability is the extent to which the net benefits of the intervention continue or are likely to continue, as well as to the resilience to risk of net benefit flows over the intended useful project life. Interventions are rated on for each criterion on 4-level scale: relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, sustainability. The overall project performance rating is based on the simple average of the scores of the 4 core criteria. The project performance rating criteria is measured on a 4-point scale: highly successful, successful, partly successful, and unsuccessful. Let us use an example to illustrate the application of the criteria. To illustrate and better understand each criteria, let us use as example the evaluation of the reconstruction of the road section in a member country under the construction of the Eastern Europe, Western China Corridor Road in the country.
دكتور أحمد، تسمح لي لو توقف الفيديو شوي وأعطيك مقترح؟
تفضل.
أنا ودي الحضور يزداد شوقا لو أعطيناهم الفيديو كامل الآن ما راح يسمعونه مرة أخرى. فأنا أقول كمقترح إذا حبيت دكتور إنه نقول لهم هذا الفيديو موجود في المكان الفلاني. عشان يتشوقون. ودنا إذا كان دكتور تسمح لي عشان وقتك يعني مهم جدا وجودك معنا. كذا ودي أخش يعني على الحديث وتسمح لي بهذه المداخلة. دكتور، هذا الكلام اللي قاعد تتكلم فيه جميل جدا. جهود البنك الإسلامي للتنمية معروفة الأمانة لكل من هو موجود في القطاع، ولكن عدد كبير يتساءل. يجي سؤال مهم جدا: أين أجد هذه المعرفة؟ هذا واحد. الثانية دكتور كذلك اسمح لي سؤال آخر: هل ممكن أن يكون البنك الإسلامي للتنمية جزء من نشر هذه المعرفة والثقافة؟
Is it possible that the IDB can have this culture of knowledge? Thank you very much. This is one of the proposals, and I will give here an example to the next step. Where can I find this guide? And this is maybe the question that you raised. So here I will share my screen. So if we go to Google and write OECD evaluation criteria, we'll find the first result. We'll find this revised evaluation criteria Arabic 2021 on OECD website, and if we click on it, we'll find the entire file under the best criteria for better evaluation. And you will find translation of the guidelines in Arabic with preface and introduction in English, and all the standard criteria.
كوبي للرابط نزل في المقابلة الآن.
So you please share the link, please, so that you can go to it. Yes, please, I will do it, because we're used to snacks and to quick win-wins. Of course, I will be available. I will really make it available to all participants, and I thank you all for giving us this opportunity to know each other and to do networking and to share knowledge among all participants. And this source, which is available in Arabic, might be unknown to many participants, especially, and this is an accredited and certified reference. So at the end, I would like to thank you and to thank all participants. So if you have any questions, please feel free to raise them. We are happy to welcome you, and we will open floor to questions. And at the end of this session, we will have Q&As. And then please just see one of the development actors. And we're looking forward to meet you in other forums in which the IDB would be present. We see the outcome of your work, either in KSA or outside the KSA. Maybe some people might not know IDB, but we are pleased to welcome you once again. Thank you very much, Doctor. So now we move on to Dr. Qaddour, who will deal with the evaluation experience by the Impact Center. They have a pioneer experience at the level of non-profitable organizations, and they have made a laudable initiative. And we, Impact Assessment Center, have made tremendous achievements led by Engineer Shahrani, and now we're seeing some of its fruits. Now we move to Dr. Qaddour. Please, you have 15 minutes. Please, floor is yours. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for this kind invitation to take part in this session. In fact, my intervention would be concise, and I will try to focus on two main points. The first one relates to the experience of translation and conversation in Arabic in coordination with the National School for Administration. Then I will deal with some of the issues or challenges that you are facing in terms of teaching. So, teaching evaluation programs, given my experience in teaching in some Arabic universities. Do you hear me clearly? Yes, it's loud and clear.
التجربة في مجال
concerning translation and Arabization, let me say that this journey started in 2019 when I first met Dr. Marsouf, who is my professor in Masters and my supervisor in my PhD thesis. Speakers stop to speak.
دكتور يبدو أن الصوت عندك توقف.
Yes, the speaker stopped to speak. You may have a voice issue. You can look at the website shared by the IDB. In fact, the colleagues at the IDB, and IDB is one of the institutions that have a clear impact on development today. And the bank has a desire to make some impact inside the KSA. Yes, there was some connection issue, but you will count the time on you. So I said that I met Dr. Marceau, Richard Marceau in Quebec, in the National School of Administration, and we talked about the project of translating the dictionary that we have compiled from French into Arabic. Certainly, at the outset, I was very enthusiastic to that idea because my experience in teaching, this is the huge need for Arabic content, not only for training, but also for teaching at the academic level. And I thought that it's highly important to develop that content. But afterwards, I was somehow afraid for two main reasons. The first one is that even though Arabic is my mother tongue, I was a bit disconnected from working in Arabic for about 15 years when we moved to Canada, and this is a long period as you know. And also, I did not have an experience in the field of translation, even though I have training in field of evaluation. So I was very pleased when the initiative came from the Institute of Public Administration. When they entered into a contract with Dr. Mansour Chtiwi, who is an expert in translation. So in that case, we made up a team in terms of including a specialist in translation and an expert in evaluation. And that relieved me from much stress. So as Dr. Mansour said, we worked on the translation of the evaluation terminology, and the dictionary included then 81 terms from French to Arabic. And we worked on the methodology that was explained by Dr. Marceau. It's a methodology that we found very important. But in addition to what Dr. Marceau said earlier, I have some elements to add that might enlighten the stakeholders and those working translation of references from foreign languages to Arabic. So I think it's highly important that there should be an expert in translation and another one expert in content, that is to say in evaluation, so that there can be some complementarity. So in our field of work, before Dr. Mansour started the process of translation, my task was to make sure that the concepts used and that we want to translate are clear and obvious and understandable, intelligible to Dr. Mansour, given that he's not an expert in the field of evaluation. And after the process of explaining the concepts to Dr. Mansour, as he said, and its relation to the whole semantic field, I explained also to Dr. Mansour the relation between those terms and the other concepts. Then Dr. Mansour and went the translation process, and then my task was to revise the translation of the concept, the definition, to make sure that the translation in Arabic, the definition in Arabic is accurate and fulfills the same meaning as that in French, which is the source language. Also, I looked into the specific term that was used in the target language, which is Arabic. But, Doctor, please, sorry to interrupt you, but here you move to some element which I would like to enlighten. How did you manage to reconcile between the appropriate term and the translation? How did you resolve that situation? Maybe here I would like to mention that, frankly, I was surprised to see how much Arabic was flexible. It's a very highly rich language, and in most cases, we did not find difficulties in finding the appropriate equivalent in Arabic, which goes in par with the source language term. Let's take, for example, Professor Marcel mentioned the term horizontal data. To find appropriate term in English was very difficult, but to render it in Arabic, it was easy because it means the rationale of the program. So it was easy to find the appropriate term in Arabic. In some cases, there were some difficulties to find the appropriate equivalent. For example, in French, we might have one term or one word, single word, but in Arabic, to render it in Arabic, we have to render it into a compound, now composed of two elements. And the principle with which we worked is that we should not sacrifice the meaning. The major focus should be put on the meaning, and then the issue of selecting the appropriate term. And in certain cases, we had the option to choose between 3 to 4 terms in Arabic. And we became convinced that in terms of language, it's not the quality of the term that is important, but also what we call the strength or the power of the word. And then we decided that in the case when we have choices, multiple choices, we prefer the term that are most common in the field of evaluation. And in this field, when we have options, we will use the term used by the IDB, for example, or the terms used by African Development Bank. So in that case, we did not want to create new terms or to inflate language. And if we want to make an addition, we have to make sure that it adds value to the phenomenon that we were examining or the term that we were about to translate. So our focus was to make sure that the term rendered the same meaning. So this is as regards the translation process. It was a very rich experience for both of us, for all of us. And ultimately, we could translate 86 terms into Arabic that we can use in the field of evaluation, but not only in evaluation, but they can be used also in other fields, such as teaching and academics. So this is concerning the second element, which relates to Arabization. we have to revise the joining consent and translate it in Arabic. Maybe Dr. Arif might better know than me how this goes in terms of administration and governance. I think the Impact Center took in charge of translation, the first process of translation, and then we revised that translation, which was conducted in the first phase. I think the content was very important and very interesting. And as you might know, when we speak about impact, I would like to mention here that this content, which was now translated, was not used only in the field, in training sessions that are organized by the ENAP or other training sessions organized by Impact Center, but we use them also in teaching. And this is one of the impacts of these projects and outcomes that can be yielded from these projects. Now I will move to the other aspect, which relates to the challenges we are facing at academic level in terms of providing support to teaching in Arabic language in social sciences in general, and not only evaluation. Doctor, please, could you please concise and summarize these challenges in 2 minutes, please? Yes, I will be brief and focus on the challenges, major challenges. One of the major challenges we are facing, as Dr. Fudi said earlier, currently evaluation is at crossroads with many other disciplines. When we speak about evaluation, many concepts that we use in evaluation come from administration, political science, economics, assessment or analysis of political policies, national policies. And if we speak about evaluation in Arabic, there should be a plan to translate the content in these disciplines to have stock or inventory of language from which we can benefit in terms of evaluation. The second challenge relates to incentives. It relates to the production in Arabic. As you know, most Arab universities, the promotion of university professors is based on the contribution to publishing and to works published in international universities. Even though they might have experience in Arab universities, that lack of incentives do not encourage university professors to publish in Arabic. And they cannot provide evaluation staff or specialists with content in Arabic. Shall I stop here, or is there still time? Your intervention is rich, but you can continue for a little while, please. Maybe the last point, which my previous colleagues did not mention, that we need to encourage the culture of evaluation in Arab countries. In addition to that, I would like to add an important element which cannot be resolved by evaluation specialists, but it's related to the necessity of enhancing transparency and accountability in public governance and management. If we manage to solve this issue at the level of our politics, we can promote evaluation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your valuable. Before you leave, please, I request Impact Center staff members to benefit from experience. So invite them to contact you and to learn from experience, and it can be a reverse linkage operation. Thank you, Doctor. The priority, as you said, is to the meaning, to the significance. So what you mentioned, you insisted on it, like Dr. Marso. So the focus in translation is on the meaning. And this is a major challenge in development, and the shift from one language to another, there might be some loss in terms of the meaning. Thank you for that inventory, or that we have systems. Now I would like to move to the third speaker. Now we're moving to a unique experience. I have a few ideas about it, which is the experience of the Jordanian experience in terms of evaluating impact throughout the whole process of the project in cooperation with international organizations and the major impact studies. Now, I wish to give you more than 15 minutes, but I have to abide by the time. I invite, please, you have 15 minutes. Dr. Abir, please be concise. The floor is yours. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Impact Center, Dr. Raed and Dr. Hamza, for giving us this opportunity. And I would like to thank all the participants for sharing with us their experiences. So I will be brief to the most possible extent. Please let me share my screen. Can you see my screen? Yes, please, it's clear. Today, I will present the experience of Jordanian government in institutionalizing the evaluation process and impact assessment. I will give you a background and the role of the Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation and the evaluation and impact assessment unit that is established within the ministry and its goals and missions, the major achievements that it has made, and experience and learned lessons in Arabization of content. So the Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation plays an important role in achieving through development in Jordan, with development partners, including donor institutions and international finance institutions, as well as local organizations. It plays a pivotal role in terms of planning and coordinates with all stakeholders to develop plans in the medium and long terms and comprehensive development programs. It also develops development projects. As you know, the evaluation and assessment of monitoring framework played an important role in the assessing the impact of projects and policies. There was a need to have studies and references to inform decision makers at the various levels. So, in the year 2000, there were many studies and on the situation in evaluation in Jordan. Those studies revealed the evaluation process is underwent by international evaluation organizations.
Are only addressed by international organizations because they possess the needed tools. In 2010, but before 2010, there was a evaluation monitoring directorate that had two sections, section for monitoring and section for evaluation. But it was decided to establish a specialized unit in the Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation. to be the first unit to support decision makers with evidence and to support the concerned institutions. The goals of this unit was to take the evaluation process to be an integral part of governmental developmental programs by evaluating the programs and projects and their impact on the level of service or the quality of service provided to citizens, economic sector and social sectors. To realize these objectives, the main task was to institutionalize the evaluation process and the request for a project financing and contributing to formulating project documents. When project documents were submitted, the financing organization has request to have the logical framework and to indicate the goals, the components, and the KPIs. When we worked with the national partners, we were keen on having them as a integral part of all project documents and providing data for the indicators as basic data for submission with the financing request. We not only supported the Ministry of Planning, we also supported the Jordanian government in this area, and we received requests for evaluation studies from various institutions, in addition to effective participation with donors and financing organizations. Usually when there were missions, the national organizations only used to coordinate before. The participation was by contributing to the TORs and evaluation studies. Most importantly in this regard is capacity building for evaluation among public servants through training courses. There were special recommendations. Before we move to the next slide, if we go back to the capacity building, this is one of the major issues. Could you just in a few seconds tell us how this happened? I'm going to come to that in the following slide. Here I just put the major accomplishments in the unit areas of operation. Evaluation studies were conducted using the in-house team in Arabic and in English. In English, when we had external organization, and we had quality assurance on all stages of evaluation. There was an important book in evaluation, which was The Road to Results, which was written by experts from the World Bank. We participated with colleagues from the Arab Republic of Egypt, and this was a good example of regional cooperation in reviewing the translation, revising the translation of this book. Now, for the specialized training, as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we had a study on evaluation in the government apparatus, and we found that one of the major challenges that the training courses are all theoretical, where there was no sequence towards achieving results. So we developed a specialized training course for the governmental sector in Jordan over 3 stages. The first stage was a theoretical introduction about evaluation and impact assessment and all related concepts from a scientific perspective. In cooperation with the specialized training program held in Canada with the experts from the World Bank. This is held annually. a training program was designed and delivered to trainers over a period of 1 week with the necessary interpretation service. And then there was on-job training for 3 months. By the end of the first training course, which was the introductory training course for evaluation concepts, the trainees were given an assignment. They were divided into working groups and given examples for evaluation studies, and they were followed up by the Ministry of Planning and concerned experts for 3 months. So we were keen on having this a practical experience in coordination with several bodies. The team developed the plan, the study, and the results. After the 3 months, we conducted the advanced workshop to present the results and to complement the most important concepts, and also to share examples from various countries of evaluation studies. With regards to the challenge that was mentioned by the colleagues in terms of Arabizing content and ensuring that we have the same concepts and terms with all stakeholders. In the unit, we adopted international criteria, which was developed by OECD, which were Arabized and shared with all countries. This is the last version. So the criteria were adopted, and also you have 2 minutes. I have finished. I just want to present the lessons we learned. The evaluation mechanism was shared with all its details, taking into consideration the specificity of some evaluation studies for programs and projects, in addition to sharing some applied concepts. For organizations for whom we conducted studies and the trainees. Thank you. If there are any questions, thank you very much. This is very brief. We consider these sessions as just highlights, and we know, of course, that their experiences can be shared in 15 minutes or even an hour. So if you can provide us with the material, if you can paste it in the chat. And also they can access this through Google searches. Thank you very much. IRI, the International Republic Institute, are going to share with us a very nice presentation. They are going to present the IRI experience. Of course, IRI is well known. It is not for profit organization. And we have 2 presenters. This is very nice. We have Mr. Khaldan Kuba and Mr. Mohammed Al-Laham. Today, we are going to have this presentation between Amman and Washington. Welcome. So I won't take any longer. They want to hear you more than they want to hear me. I will not interfere with how you divide the 15 minutes between the two of you.
Thank you very much, Abdullah. My name is Khaldun Kobar. I'm a senior monitoring, evaluation, and learning specialist joining you from Washington, D.C. And today with me, Mohammed.
I'm Mohammed Al-Laham. I'm the regional manager for IRI. I'm based in Amman, Jordan.
The good news is that our wonderful presenters have already covered it all. They covered wonderful content that we are going to also re-emphasize through our messages today. So let's dive into this. Okay, a little bit about IRI. IRI is a non-profit, non-partisan organization that operates in more than 85 countries. We focus on building the capacity of the civil society, governments. Connecting people with government is in the core of our mission. Ensure that the citizen-centered governance is the core on the countries that we are operating in. Currently, we have more than 500 projects active worldwide, as you can see in the slide. Okay, so when it comes to monitoring, evaluation, and learning, IRI philosophy focus on mail effort should be participatory and result in actionable information. Meaning, as we have seen from our wonderful presenters, that it is challenging. It could be technical, whether we are translating monitoring, evaluation, and learning terms, or when we are implementing evaluation. So participatory is absolutely one approach that we always follow. Aware of the complexity and evolving environment, meaning one solution fits all is not something that we do. We customize and ensure the content that we are offering for a certain country or a certain region is customized toward the needs of that specific country or region. And respect the interests of our stakeholders. We communicate, we listen, and then we introduce the content. After listening, conduct need assessment and understand exactly what's the need of this target stakeholder, whether it's like a local activist, civil society organization, government, if you will. And then we reflect the highest rigor when it comes to monitoring and evaluation, following the American evaluation standard, or like others when it comes to the region that we operate in. So who does MEL? It is important for you also to understand that it is a multi-layer structure, meaning we have offices in Washington, D.C., people like me, people like Mohammed in the field, DC-based field-based specialists, and at the same time, like the local partner, whether it's a government on the local or national level, that we work with them to build their capacities in certain area of demand. Okay, so what challenges? Again, that's not something often new to you, that we implement in programs in more than 85 countries. Arabic, English, French, Spanish, it's just like a few of the languages that we use. There are just literally tens of these languages. And building local monitoring, evaluation, and learning capacity of those partners in their native language can be challenging, as mirror translation is often not enough and can be often lead to a confusion or miscommunication. Meaning, just to reiterate some of the messages that you just hear through the previous presentation, output versus outcome, like outcome mapping, or like also introduce, for instance, assessing the civil society organizational assessment, where by itself, this is a toolkit to help us understand before starting the implementation where this specific organization capacity lies at the baseline, and conducting this evaluation with all these 17 technical areas, more than 50 technical terms could be challenging. Therefore, that's one of the challenge when it comes to how we introduce it, how we ensure that what we are offering to them is 100% crystal clear. Okay, moving forward. What else? The multi-level structure when it comes to IRI, meaning we develop wonderful guidance, resources, but it only mean that much unless we meaningfully translate them. We introduce these resources in the native language in a way that is understood and nicely received, if you will, and processed based on the audience that we have, their level of education and understanding for the term. Something also worth mentioning is that these like monitoring, evaluation, and learning terms could be absolutely accurate when it comes to like Iraq, Jordan, or like the Saudi context. But whenever you go to Tunisia and Morocco, it could mean something totally different. And that's why we, even within the same region, there are differences that we have to be aware of. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about IRI approach, and this is back to Mohammed.
Thank you so much, Khaldun. And the first thing at IRI in terms of the approach in order to dismantle that challenge is to conduct field visit and train the local staff on setting up the local system that might be appropriate for that context within that culture. And once we establish that system that can be followed, we create the MEL resources in the native language, whether that will be the Arabic, French, or English, or Spanish, or what have you. Those are the two things that kickstart us. And then we progress to the advanced stage where we actually tailor MEL training and mentorship program in the native language in that select country, so we can expand on the meaning of some of the vocabularies that we use and some of the terminology and break it down to their native language of understanding. And the two important things that we focus on, particularly in the evaluation term, that most of the evaluation design that we develop is focused on inclusive and participatory process. Because having a participatory process would give us that flexibility to get feedback from our beneficiaries, local partners, so we can tailor that evaluation design in a way that is actually reflective of the local language and the local culture. And another thing, we know that some of the terminology might be perceived differently in different contexts and different local cultures. So we always focus on the positive reinforcement of the exercises rather than focusing on a control mechanism. And this is really key here. If some local context is not very friendly towards one particular evaluation like design or a terminology, we need to be flexible and aware of that and focus on the meaning rather than on the structure itself. This, I share with you one example of the MEL handbook that we developed in multiple language. This is actually a handbook that we use for our own staff and can be shared externally with the local partners, so we can give them a brief on the best practices that we do MEL in IRI and how we can operate some of the terminology and what we mean by certain things in the MEL culture. With that being said, I will turn it back to you, Khaldun, to talk us about some of the lessons learned throughout the process.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. And something to mention is that we will be able to share with you this a link for this monitoring evaluation toolkit. Again, back to our presenter, that is on the center of our attention, to create resources that is shareable internally and externally with the audience that we approach, if you will. So what did we learn? To ensure comprehension, once translated, the MEL concept need to be validated with local context and ensure relevance to our daily lives and beneficiaries. While our presenters mentioned earlier glossaries and reference for resources that is available, again, we operate in like a big region, if you will, and multiple regions, not only one. Even when it comes to the Arabic content, when we do find a translation for a term like outcome mapping, we engage in a conversation through Skype or team messages with our field experts, if you will, the people who do the MEL on day-to-day basis to validate and ensure that we end up with using a term that is agreed upon among that's focused on the definition and also agreed upon among the local implementer or the MEL specialist monitoring or evaluating our programs on the day-to-day basis. And also, when it comes to translation, while some mirror translation really accurate, but it does tap into certain countries into the fear. For instance, you're using the word monitoring in terms of auditing or just controlling could be really, really challenging and does hurt the trust and the culture of learning that we want to build with those local partners. And there where we focus on shifting from actually auditing when it comes to monitoring to the term where we're focusing on learning, mutaba'a basically, instead of rasada or muraqaba. So that's like one example here to mention. What else? Toolkits. We've shared the handbook. We have many other resources when it comes to assessing government institution, when it comes to assessing the capacity of civil society organization, political parties, you name it. So these resources would be first developed at the headquarter level, and then we share them down towards like the fields using the native language. We do the translation and then we share feedback and brainstorm. Sometimes literally one term could take us up to a week just to agree among the 14 of us, if you will, in the field to ensure that this is the right terminology and this is how we are going to introduce it in the local context. Then finally, what did we learn? MEL efforts are more successful when they emphasize utilization and adaptation, meaning we introduce it as a practical and user-friendly as possible term to ensure it is absolutely understood and utilized by our partners. Now, enough on what did we do or what did we learn. Let's, moving forward, learn some of the recommendation from an organization that's been working in the field for more than 30 years. Back to you, Mohammed.
Thank you so much, Khaldun. And one of the first recommendation we might give, if we can move to the next slide, you can see that we need to have a strong MEL culture in HQ. And one of this can be translated, we need resources. And one of the resources that we need, especially when we're working on programs that are funder driven, we need to allocate enough money and budget to the M&E. Certainly, we have the culture in IRI to allocate between 3 to 5% of all program funded related acquired to monitoring and evaluation and learning. This will allow us, empower us to actually have enough time, resources to translate and have more in-depth conversation with experts so we can have the best products out there. Because that's one of the challenge there is, especially for organizations who work on programs or getting funding. They need to allocate some time percentage of the funding towards monitoring and evaluation in order to enable them to do that. And also, this has been covered by all the presenters today. Thank you all for your insight, great insight on all of this. Rather than providing definition, we always create glossaries that provide programmatic, user-friendly explanations of what these terms mean. That's actually more of a broader term that would help us be more in touch with the local partners in their native language. And the next, we mentioned in that the trainings and all of that, on setting all the system, this is actually the first step. There will always need to be ongoing mentorship and support because the M&E will always be adaptive, always be flexible, and it will always learn new things with different contexts within the same country, even not only within different regions within the MENA, within the same country, there need to be some differences on some of the project we work with. So my last recommendation, I will wrap up this one, is that we need to have strategies in place. We need to have strategies in place to reflect the overall goal of the organization that actually integrate the MEL activities in an overall MERC work plan, whether that's through contracts, agreements, so we can have a set definition of everything. And I cannot stress this point enough. We need to have frequent communications, whether that will be calls, emails, Zoom meetings, Teams messages, whatever that is. We need to always have data to collect and findings to discuss with our local partners in the field. And lastly, if we have the resources and we are able to acquire expert trainers, a training of trainers will go a long way in establishing a strong MEL culture in the host country with the local staff, because that way we can reiterate the first measure that we did is building the capacity of understanding these definitions rather than focusing on the terminology. With that, I would like to thank you all for your invitation for us today and for all the contribution for your wonderful presenters that are here with us today. And if you have any questions for us, Khaldun and I are more than happy to answer any of that.
شكرا لك، شكرا لكم جميعا.
Thank you all.
مع جمال الحديث اللي تفضلتم به هناك
With the wonderful things you said, I'm finding a battle in the chat box. Now, if there are any direct questions for the two speakers, let me go back to the intellectual battle that's going on the chat box at a later stage. You have mentioned something that gives us some comfort in Saudi Arabia, that terms differ even within the same language, because in particular, the Impact Assessment Center colleagues find a bit of difficulty in explaining some terms. So today, one of the wonderful things is that we understand from you that this problem is at all levels, even within the same language, that there is. Dr. Qadour, what do you want, Dr. Qadour? What's your problem? What has infuriated you intellectually? I just was adding to what Khaldun said in his intervention, that terms are change from one region to another. The terms have a historical bearing. For example, in the area of Maghreb, when we use the term collaboration historically in the region, it was used to refer to collaborators with the French occupiers. So when you say thank you for your collaboration, or we want you to collaborate with you, this would raise some sensitivities and rejection because of the connotation, the historical connotation of the term. Thank you, Dr. I have a question here from Dr. Abdullah Rabia, who is saying that I would have hoped that there would be a revision of the studies about evaluation and assessment. Are there none, or are there only a few, or are they just not captured? If anyone has a response, please unmute yourself and go ahead. Perhaps this was mentioned also in the first session, that we don't have such studies. Can anyone respond? Maybe I can comment on the idea.
إنه قد قام هنالك ما يسمى قمت بمسح للدراسات الموجودة في الموضوع، ولكن
that there has been a survey of all the studies in the field, but the problem we're facing, even when we teach in master's programs, we want to provide studies published in Arabic to support the students. But regretfully, what we observe that there's a problem of quality. And as I mentioned, that the lack of quality is not because it's just because the selection is not based on good criteria. So to do a research, you should have an opportunity to publish. If it is not, if it is published, if it's based on international standards, you should go to publish it in an English language newspaper. So what I want to say is that there is no quality in the area.
I would like to raise a direct question to Dr. Khaldun. You spoke about participation, flexibility and participation. This flexibility and participation, how can we conceive it in our societies? This is a very important question. And in fact, participation takes some time, and maybe as an institutional culture, it's constant, continuous process that is built over generations. So the various institutions that work on the issue of how to make participation in research work. So if we go back 10 or 5 years ago, most projects and programs are conceived in Washington, D.C. and approved in Washington, D.C. But then there was a culture to allocate financial resources about 2 or 3% to make sure that experts have enough time to focus their efforts in reviewing the source, to provide the know-how, to make sure that we do not always go to voluntary work to publish this. So this is a culture that starts from up to the leadership or the civil society organizations down to implementing agencies and partners. Ultimately, it becomes an individual responsibility. I'm very pleased with this concept of participation. And I apologize if I took much time, but thank you all. We were pleased to see all the lecturers. Frankly, this subject needs much more time than the one we devoted, but this was brief, and confidently that now we have more than 100 attendees, and they all know this individual responsibility towards evaluation. Now, meanwhile, we will move to the forthcoming session that will be held in 5 minutes. It will be moderated by Dr. Hajar Zamil in Professional Impact Center. She contributed to establishing evaluation units in non-governmental and non-profit institutions. She has PhD in economics. And good luck. Dr. Hajar will moderate that session, which will include Dr. Julia Hashimrani, Mr. Zaki Hanifa from the IDB, and Dr. Professor Arif bin Abdullah from the NLP. So we'll come back in 4 minutes.
السلام عليكم. سامعيني؟ صوتي واضح؟
وعليكم السلام، صوت واضح.
صوت واضح.
حياكم الله جميعا حضورنا الكريم بآخر جلسة بعنوان المضي قدما. طبعا الكلمة الختامية راح تكون
Welcome back to the third session entitled Looking Ahead. It will include representatives from the Impact Center, IPD, and the this initiative aims at joining efforts and creating synergies. We thank all lecturers and speakers, and there were many details and many information, many fruitful outcomes. And the need was stressed on the importance of joining efforts and of launching initiatives in the field of evaluation in Arabic content. So today we should look to the content from a larger perspective and to look at it from the perspective of production and learning experiences while paying attention to the source language and to look for the appropriate terminology. Flexibility and participation was also emphasized. So now we start the third session with Mr. Arif Abdullah from the ENAB. So how can we move forward in a few minutes? We'll try to see that. Please, the floor is yours. This is a huge challenge, but all the work that we are undergoing is a challenge. So I have 7 minutes to tackle this. So first of all, is upon the Prophet, present Allah. I would like to thank all the participants, panelists. I'm very, very pleased to be with you today and to take part in these discussions. We started from far away. I remember that in 2016, there was ENAB Tunisia, and the first meeting was presented. The road to results was presented then at that meeting. It was prepared by the World Bank, and half of speakers then spoke about the importance of spoken French and Arabic, and so I tried then to speak in Arabic, but it didn't work, and I tried to translate it to French or English. So how can it be possible that large number of Arabs who maybe 4 to 5 Arabs who were attending the session and could not understand each other, which justifies to the absence of Arabic in this field, and in existence of Arabic in the field of evaluation. So then the idea came to transfer knowledge in the field of evaluation to Arabic. So we started with PIFID. So now I will start, and I have 7 minutes to present. National Institute of Public Policies. So the ENAB is a university, state university established in Quebec. It teaches the second and third tertiary education, which means master's degrees and PhD programs. And in this meeting, we have Dr. Khadour and Dr. Marso, who are active participants in the ENAB programs. And the ENAB has specialized in providing support in capacity building public policies. in Canada and Quebec, and especially the French-speaking region of Canada. And one of the first works in which I participated in ENAP was mainly in French. My experience in teaching in French is extensive in this field. We have the PFED program, which is equivalent to the program that Dr. Manal mentioned a bit, in which there was partnership with PFED, which is equivalent to by the Independent Evaluation Group at the World Bank. And it started in 2019 up to now, and what was mainly in French. And Dr. Marceau, Dr. Khaddour contributed significantly to that program, and it was disseminated to many other French-speaking countries, particularly in North Africa, and we managed to train about 2,000 trainees in that program. And we also concluded partnerships with governments, government institutions, and central government institutions, and also sectoral institutions in the field of capacity building, in the field of evaluation, mainly in Maghreb Arab countries, Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, Mauritania, and many other countries. First experience was conducted in Jordan, and then the idea came to Arabization in 2019. The first proposal emerged then, but we did not manage to bring that idea into effect. There were many obstacles to convince the participants of the importance of Arabic and its ability to convey meaning and knowledge in the field of evaluation. There were major concerns and hesitation on the part of participants, and they did not accept the fact that Arabic can convey meaning in the field of evaluation.
مجال التقييم. لحسن الحظ كان عندي لقاء في
Currently, I had a meeting in Amman in the DED with Dr. Abu Majid and engineer Abu Raid, and the road we achieved many accomplishments, and we quickly agreed that there was an agreement between ENAP and the Impact Center on a program in Arabic for the benefit of non-profitable organizations in Jordan. We supported, and this ENAP was a major partner in the GR evaluation initiative, and the GI also endorsed this idea to promote this in the MENA region and provided major impetus to this initiative. We held the first online session in June of last year with the participation of 5 countries from the Maghreb Arab, namely Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and Mauritania. And we trained a team of senior officials in organizations in these 5 countries in the first session of the evaluation program in Arabic. And Dr. Khaddour and Dr. Rashid and many other attendees and panelists attended this program. And we are very pleased and we take pride in this achievement. To support that program, and as part of that forum, we sponsored the initiative and we contacted Dr. Khaddour, Dr. Marceau, and Dr. Mansour Shtiwi to produce part of it, but at the end, we managed to produce the entire glossary of evaluation terms in Arabic, which provides the equivalent Arabic terms of the original French Chairman of French dictionary, which was developed by Dr. Marceau and his team. That this glossary is available to all participants in the evaluation program, and are pleased to disseminate it to the largest possible extent so that you can use those terms which can be of help in capacity building in the field of evaluation in Arabic language. I wanted to say this to present experiences undertaken by the ENAP and to clarify the level to which we have reached in terms of providing support from ENAP to the Arabic-related initiative and the importance it attaches to this field. Thank you very much. I apologize to interrupt you, but for the sake of time, I have to interrupt you. Please be concise. I still have some few elements. Maybe in 1 or 2 minutes, please, if you can.
أريد فقط يمكن في دقيقة
In 1 minute time, I will tackle the issue of perspective and the way forward. Many lessons have been learned from past experiences, and many panelists made some recommendations for the future. I would like just to point out that there will be some positive surprises, either those who are working with Islamic Development Bank or with Impact Center and other partners in the International Evaluation Initiative. There will be a forum, maybe I think it will be organized in May at the level of the level of Arab countries to exchange views in evaluation, and it will be led by the Global Evaluation Initiative, and it will see the participation of governments and non-governmental organizations. The ENAP management in partnership with GIA will hold an online session on the evaluation program with the participation of many countries outside the KSA. We still have session to be held in KSA in partnership with our major partner, which is the Impact Center. So the way forward is full of achievements to be made, and invite all research institutions, all partners, all universities that are interested in cooperation and collaboration and in sharing these expertise to contact us either through the Impact Center or through the various partners, including Islamic Development. We will be happy to provide necessary support and to contribute to this edifice. And the purpose is not only to enhance capacities, but also to improve standards of living of Arab citizens. And this can be achieved through political decisions, administrative decisions, and this cannot be achieved only through evaluation and entrenching the culture of evaluation within the entire Arab world. Thank you very much. I apologize for exceeding time allotted to me. Thank you very much. The Islamic Development Bank is one of the pioneers in disseminating evaluation knowledge. Mr. Zakaria, given that the Islamic Development Bank is one of the pioneer institutions, how can we move forward in 7 minutes?
Thank you very much, Dr. Hajar. Distinguished panelists, respected guests and colleagues, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm delighted to express my sincere thanks to you all for attending this important forum. Many thanks particularly to the organizers, Markaz Al-Athar Impact Center, for addressing this esteemed gathering. I will try to keep my comments very short, as already many interventions have covered some of the aspects I was going to address. So as we have heard from the various discussions and the articulated arguments of panelists, several points have been made delineating the current landscape and the challenges it poses. It will be definitely difficult addressing all the aspects, but I will try to cover some of the recommendations to remedy the scarcity of the Arabic context, the Arabic content in the context of evaluative thinking, evaluation practices, communication, and capacity building from the perspective of a multilateral development organization. All of us at some point came across the expression, knowledge is like a candle. Even as it lights another candle, the strength of the original flame is never diminished. Similarly, we should remember that humanity owes a debt of gratitude to the Arab scholars for their work in translating Greek and other proficient materials in all fields and disciplines of research. By the same token, we should not demonize other languages for their modern domination in scientific research and technology advances. Instead, we should seek to establish a framework that provides enabling environments conducive to promoting the utilization of the Arabic language, the proliferation of Arabic content through data collection and standardized terminology convention, and most importantly, collaborative mechanisms weaving the various stakeholders to foster sustainable partnerships and tangible results in the short, medium, and long terms. Allow me to share a few relevant facts about ISDB. As you know, ISDB was established in 1975. It has 3 official languages, Arabic being the first of them, the other 2 being English and French. ISDB has provided over $300 million in support for literacy and education projects in Africa and Muslim communities in non-member countries. Also, it allocates grants to teach the Arabic language. Keep in mind that Arabic is a very strong and resilient language that has influenced other cultures and has maintained its own integrity. These facts are evidence of the interrelatedness of core concerns for the evaluation and development community. So we urge all stakeholders involved to adopt integrated approaches and work collaboratively to address the inherent challenges from the scarcity of Arabic content in the development sphere particularly. Therefore, it's important to lay this foundation, forge partnership, as I mentioned, between government agencies, academia, training centers of excellence, and evaluation communities that are still emerging and still don't have the necessary infrastructure through the region. This would eventually boost the Arabic language presence in the era of the 4th Industrial Revolution. Main challenges that I haven't heard being mentioned from the previous discussants is really the vehicles for use in Arabic and to enhance the presence of the Arabic content. It's really technology. Why is English so practical? Why is it used so abundantly in research? I think we missed mentioning that. Aside from the scholarly production and the publications, I think it's key to acknowledge that the technology is not there to serve as the vehicle it's supposed to be. So this emphasizes the role of language in the maintenance and well-being of social and cultural systems. So the challenge for Arab governments is therefore to develop policies and infrastructure capable of producing adequate digital content in Arabic. This is essential for both preserving and making available the best existing Arabic scholarship, publications, referential materials that would serve as valuable guides in evaluation training and in practical development work. Also, it would support the ongoing research and current and future Arabic-speaking scholars and development practitioners. Therefore, harnessing technological opportunities and smart and innovative tools to navigate a world where data is bigger and faster, where the existence of solid terminology is certainly a prerequisite for soundly guided decision-making processes in evaluation practice. I would wrap up here and give some main takeaways or practical recommendations, and we can come back to them if we get time. We need a deeper collaboration among various development institutions to generate Arabic content and standardize key technical terms. We need to stream communication through media channels in Arabic to ensure sustainable coverage for various development sectors. We also need to build on existing networks and consortium, particularly universities in the MENA region, to develop joint curriculum on evaluation courses and/or certified programs. I know some of these already exist. However, they are isolated. So we need to consolidate fragmented initiatives and siloed approaches, particularly in e-learning and professional development. This comes, glaringly after the pandemic and the momentum that e-learning and distant learning has picked up. So in conclusion, esteemed colleagues, we can take pride in the recent accomplishments of launching the OECD DAC criteria in Arabic, conducting the Taqyim training, the first ever evaluation training in Arabic, and contributing to the development of the glossary of key terms in evaluation and results-based management. I would like to commend the Al-Athar Center for their vigilance and dedication to the mission of promoting evaluative thinking, best practices, and instilling the monitoring and evaluation culture in emerging practitioners, public officials, and others. At the same time, we recognize that we can do more. I join my voice to my fellow colleagues and call on all stakeholders to renew our focus on bridging the gap between the meager supply and the colossal demand for Arabic content. When we act together, we can make a difference for the lasting benefit of the Ummah that we serve. Thank you.
يعطيك العافية أخ زكريا، شاكرين لك.
Thank you very much, Brother Zakaria. For the empowerment of the Arabic language and building national capacities. Engineer Ahmed Shamrani, as the CEO and the representative of Impact Center, how can we proceed? I would like to thank you all for attending this forum. The speakers and the panelists and all participants, particularly the participants from the Mashriq, the people more to the West have a time advantage. In our part of the world, it's quite late in the night. Another thing is the excellent timing. Exactly 2 years on the 1st of March 2020, before the major lockdown for the pandemic, we had a meeting with Mr. Arif, and we started discussing for the first time the implementing the evaluation project in the Arab region. I will start the clock because I know Dr. Hajar is very strict about timing. There is no doubt that Arabic is a means of communication. Without language, there can be no communication among humans, and there could be no identity. Language also helps intellect and internal thinking, even internal discourse. Consolidating terminology and linking terms to tangible objects is crucial. And this as a step is the first step towards building a knowledge identity since the start of civilization. In the Holy Quran, we find that Allah, the Exalted, gave a knowledge to Adam about all the meanings of words. There should be a continuous formulation of such terms in all walks of life so that people can converge. Now, coming to developmental evaluation, as we're speaking today, there are challenges in terms of Arabic terms. These challenges are not only on the level of secondary terms, but even major terms. For example, development itself in Arabic, it was mentioned by Dr. Adib Ne'ma in a book he published last year about development and poverty, a critical review of concepts and impact measurement, where he mentioned that development in Latin-based languages have a clear distinction between development and growth. because growth reflects increase, whereas development, which is expressed in Arabic as Tanmiyya, has a larger scope than just growth, because it encompasses major quantitative and qualitative changes that are required by development. But both are expressed in Arabic in similar terms. So this does not reflect the meaning of development, and there is no good differentiation between development and growth, because the two terms are derived from the same Arabic root. The author suggested a suitable alternative for that term, Tanmiyya, which is an-nahda instead of Tanmiyya. Actually, all these three terms have immense differences between them. This suggested term, we may consider using it. And we use sustainable nahda, the alternative term he suggested for development. This is not a shortcoming in our Arabic language, but it is towards the optimum selection of them. This is just one of numerous examples of major concepts, because it is crucial, because a language is the means to comprehension, as it has been mentioned over and over again tonight. In the preparatory workshops before this forum, there were many examples that were presented and discussed. And these can be reviewed through our website. Also, there was an excellent workshop about the role of translation in enhancing cultural identity. And there is a governmental organization that is concerned with translation, and it reflects the concern with translation and the direction taken by Saudi Arabia to enhance the cultural aspects through translation. This was the major event regarding a translation event. The second and greater challenge is related to Arabic content, and this has been covered by the sisters and brothers, because content is much more than translation. It includes the optimum use of terms, also, and the selection of the suitable terms, and more important, the report of practitioners based on the major concepts of development, such as sustainable livelihood, resilience, and various definitions of poverty, nutrition poverty, economic poverty, technological poverty, and many other major development concepts. It is also crucial to consolidate the concepts and the result-based studies and impact measurement. Convergence of such concepts requires publishing them and all the related practices, not only at the level of the evaluators, who are minimal in the region, but also introducing such concepts to practitioners of development at all levels, at the level of civil servants, managers of various development programs, and non-profit organizations, also to operationalize these terms in planning for governmental programs, and including implementation and monitoring and impact assessment by in an independent manner. I would like to conclude very briefly by noting the excellent direction in many Arab countries by transforming the development programs for evaluation to monitor based on developmental impact. And we have seen this in several experiences. And And in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we have a stipulation that development evaluation practices are enhanced for all the vision programs 2030. More important is to publish success stories and optimum practices and the various applications of such concepts, tools, and methodologies, which was mentioned by the esteemed sisters and brothers. Also providing sufficient specialized resources. And there are other forms plans to be implemented in this current year of 2022. Hopefully, we will have a similar forum every year in cooperation with our partners. We have a wonderful opportunity tonight because we have a complete system of representatives of development, academicians, practitioners, and we also have the Islamic Development Bank as a multilateral development bank that contributes to major development projects in the Muslim world, and the development sector, the practitioners from non-profit organizations as represented by the National Center, which is a governmental independent body that is concerned with developing the non-profit sector in the kingdom. Also, finally, Impact Center as a think tank that is specialized in capacity building at the national level and impact assessment, and also all the presenters tonight who represent the community of practice. We have an excellent opportunity, not only in Saudi Arabia, but at the level of the Arab world, because the Arab region with its development, huge development impact potential, and also challenges requires a huge number of practitioners. Thank you very much.
دكتورة هاجر لو تسمحي لي بس جملة وحيدة.
Dr. Hajar, can I just say something quick?
I would like to thank our to work and for their availability to work at this hour. Truly, Brother Ismail, Brother Hazim, Brother Munir, and all others, forgive me for not mentioning you by name. Thank you very much for your support.
يعطيكم العافية جميعا. بس يعطيك العافية مهندس أحمد.
Thank you all. Thank you, Engineer Ahmed. Allow me to go back to Mr. Arif with the question. What should we do as a future step to enrich Arabic contact and further capacity building?
الخط انقطع.
أنتم ما أنتم سامعيني؟
لا، لو ممكن بس تعيد السؤال أخت أبرار.
أنا رجعت لك أقول لك إيش ممكن نعمل.
I was asking you, what can we do as a future step to enrich Arabic contact in evaluation and national capacity building? Most of the panelists emphasized how weak and regretfully poor the Arabic library is in the area of evaluation, as mentioned by Brother Raed, who mentioned the project from start to end on the content of the projects and policies in Arabic. In many cases, we find some parts in Arabic only and all the rest in English or French. On the other hand, it is difficult to consolidate and build a consensus over the terms. This is a major challenge that requires efforts from all partners to overcome. The third aspect is the capacity building training in the Arabic language and convincing the Arab sisters and brothers how valuable it is to gradually learn and gain knowledge in the Arabic language, because, and I'm talking from my own experience, and I already shared this concern when I discussed with institutions and most colleagues in the Arab world. They say, "You're from Canada, we want something in English." The aim of training and evaluation is for capacity build, personal capacity building for the sisters and brothers working in the field, but the major purpose of the training and capacity building, as has mentioned by many of the speakers, is to improve administrative and political decision making and improving choices and improving development projects in our Arab world. And there is no way we can converge with the reality in the Arab world or the institutions without going through the language that is used locally. This is a major challenge. This is to be addressed by universities, research centers, government and national institutions, and civil society organizations and all other institutions. We must identify ways to consolidate our efforts to produce this knowledge in the Arabic language, so that we can build this knowledge. Just one word. I know we have severe time constraints. I want to comment on the French experience.
في دقيقة واحدة. هذا التحدي أنا عشته مع.
This challenge I have experienced with the Francophone experience. All the Francophone countries were under the English-speaking countries in the field of evaluation. There were no French references. This is not particular to our Arab world, but it's the Francophone community with all the necessary efforts managed to overcome this. And now they have the institutionalization of evaluation and professionalization of evaluation became a reality. So we in our Arab world can reach that level as well. 10 years is not too long. In 10 years, we can overcome the challenge. And the Impact Center, the Islamic Development Bank, and many other partners are willing to take on that task.
نقطة الانطلاق بإذن الله. أستاذ زكريا إذا عندك الكلمة ختامية تختتم فيها.
Brother Zakaria, would you like to conclude?
Thank you, Dr. Hajar. I will just reinforce something that Brother Raed mentioned at the beginning, which is it's important to apply the evaluative thinking and not always go and reinvent the wheel. We have to build on what is existing because the challenges are so big. So we have to build on what is on the ground. And currently what is on the ground are, networks that are in our region, in the MENA region. So whether it's regulatory networks, whether it's consortiums of universities, whether it's training centers, we have to build these linkages. We have to create them in order to establish a baseline and be able to create the content that we are looking for. There cannot be other way. This is the only way forward. Greater collaboration, deeper collaboration is the way forward. And also, we have in our countries, we have a growing society or layer of the society, which is the young people. We have lots of, a big percentage of people that are under 25 that are technology savvy, that have presence online. So we have to be able to attract this community. We have to be able to instill in them the interest and love for the Arabic language in order to have scholars down the road and who will be able to deliver the publications we're looking for. But no one can do it by themselves. A greater collaboration is the spirit for the way forward, inshallah. Thank you. Back to you.
يعطيك العافية أخ زكريا.
Thank you
ولمزيد
very
من
much, Brother Zakaria.
المهندس أحمد الشمراني إلى عندك
Brother Ahmed Shamrani. To conclude, I don't have much to add. I would like to just reiterate some of the recommendations that were mentioned by esteemed sisters and brothers. Most importantly, to encourage the concerned institutions to publish in Arabic, and also encouraging various universities and research centers to increase training, introductory and similar programs in field of evaluation in Arabic, and also publishing guidelines in Arabic for the benefit of all other evaluation practitioners, while ensuring that the national evaluation policies should include further adoption of such practices, and also ensuring that the development of specialized glossaries. And also inventorying all the resources and providing them to practitioners to overcome the obstacles, and also the official and governmental initiatives to implement such and not depending on voluntary and individual efforts for these major endeavors, for the pressing need for such practices on the entire Arab region. These are some of the most important and not all of the important recommendations that have been mentioned. We hope to see you in our next forum with more partners, more participants, and more specialists. And I hope that one day we will achieve our goals pertinent to enable an empowered community of practice. Thank you, Brother Ahmed. Thank you, Brother Zakaria, Brother Arif, towards consolidating efforts and enriching Arabic content. Thank you all. To conclude, we would like to thank you all panelists and participants for their sharing of knowledge and experiences. Thank you all for your participation, and see you in future forums. May Allah protect you all. Thank you. If you could just use the QR code, you can see to for our evaluation form. Thank you all. Thank you.